Hello, welcome to NJPW Puroresu review right here on Andre Melball Wrestling Talk. I am Andre, and right here I've got my co-host. The co-host was the most, Melball. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Andre. Man, what a week we had for the end of the G1 this week. Man, I am so hyped and so exhausted at the same time. It took so much energy out of me, but man, was it worth it. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I had a great load of fun, especially in the last 3 days, just watching the tournament match. Like I had a couple of those days off, and it was just nice to just sit back, watch those matches, and just really enjoy it. I love watching G1, especially was at night the final night of round robin. It's having 8 straight tournament matches, and I don't think anything went over 15 minutes. I don't think on the entire thing. It
I
was
believe
just
you're
a
right about that, yeah.
it was a very nice card to watch, and then you had the semifinals and then the finals both and both nights with at least their tournament matches for sure, delivering match of the year candidates for sure, in my opinion.
hmm I have to agree. And what a final we had, and what a surprise. I don't think either one of us, we're calling the end of the G1 like that when it came down to the last two participants. As much as I was definitely like, Okada certainly has some size difference given the year that Will Osprey has been having, and not even just the last year, but the last couple of years that Will Osprey is having, despite the roadblocks that have been thrown in front of him, he is just pip pip Cheerios. He is way over top of
He does.
everything, and
It's not
just
called Pip Pip Cheerio anymore. Come on.
oh no, what is it now?
I think it's Chelsea Grin. I think you renamed
Chelsea
it.
Gray. Okay, well,
Or
just
yeah,
flippy dippy over everything, sir. Just go for it.
yeah. No, but yeah, it just I didn't expect the finals to be there. I was picking Naito to win the whole tournament, so that was the big one for me. Was that, and don't get me wrong, I love seeing Osprey go to the finals, and I love that match on the final night, but was I slightly disappointed that Osprey lost? Oh heck yeah! Did that affect me more than it should? Oh heck yes, because I think Osprey is legitimately one of the best wrestlers going in the world right now, bar none any company or where you are, and all the speeches of to help take them out of the dark ages. I really wish that would have come to fruition.
hmm I agree. Honestly, when I saw the moment where I believe it was Juice and Chase and Jay White all jumped Will Osprey, in my head immediately I went, they're setting it up. This is them telling us that Will Osprey is going to win and that he's going to launch into this
Hmm.
feud with Jay White. And how incredible would it be to have arguably the two best heel mic workers, going at it and trying to kind of contend with each other on a verbal kind of level, and then having to do it for 6 months until Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, I think that would have been an incredible story and experience for us. Alas, we'll see what Senor Okada has in store for us. But at the same time, I mean, we can't take away from Okada. He carried the company for how many? He was India champion for 2 years.
At some point, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's like, as much as Hiroshi Tanahashi is still considered the ace in New Japan, I in my heart of hearts, I truly believe Okada is now the ace of that company. As like Tanahashi's, he still call him the ace for all you want, but it's Okada. You put Okada in the ring with pretty much anybody in that company, he has a match of the night contender with almost all of them, and that's being the ace of the company. Where Tanahashi's older, he's not in the main anymore. Where now that's truly how I feel, that Okada is the new ace of this company.
I do have to agree. Okada does seem to be as I described, the kind of Japanese Ken doll in that he's just got everything kind of going for him. He's a good-looking guy. He's very athletic. He's very good at in-ring psychology. He's very good at in-ring performing. He really is one of the most well-rounded wrestlers that you could ask for in this business right now. So without further ado, we should probably get into the rest of the topics that we're going to be discussing today, because we were getting excited just talking about what we're going to get to talk about. And so our top 5 matches are one of the first things we're going to get into, but we also have some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the top 5. And let me tell you, we had so many, we got 2 months of matches pretty much that we had to pick just our top 5s. So, Andre, did you want to go first with your first honorable mention?
I pulled up your first honorable mention. I apologize.
Oh, you're going to go with my... Oh, yes. ELP versus Shingo Takagi. That was my first honorable mention there. Mainly because this one was one of those surprise moments for me also. Yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of Shingo. And admittedly, my partner was with me when we were watching this. When this match happened and I saw the result of that, as much as I like both these competitors, my first reaction was anger and frustration, because I'm like, this is the dragon. Again, former IWGP heavyweight champion, carried the belt through arguably one of the toughest times that the company has seen through COVID, and and comes in and loses to not only ELP but Finley earlier, who was arguably our Cinderella story of the entire G1 there, really coming in hot in the beginning. But going back to this match, it was something that I didn't see out of ELP too much, is that really serious side. He's usually really goofy with his, dermis destroyer and his purple nurples and his nipple biting and all that.
To a point,
with this match, it was gone. It was very serious for him, and he was very determined to actually pull out this win. And look what it got him. It actually got him the win, and it made Shingo Takagi pull out things that he never does. Like, he is not a lucha libre style wrestler, but I just watched Shingo Takagi pull up a random herd Corona on ELP in the middle of the match. So for me, that was my honorable mention. What did you think about that match?
For me, I thought ELP actually, other than really the Yujiro match and the Juice match, I think his entire tournament was pretty serious ELP. I thought throughout, because like Osprey, Finley, Takagi, those matches were pretty serious. Like, yes, the Juice one was a joke in and of itself, and the Yujiro one with the whole Peter stuff.
Disqualification loss in the entire tournament, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was the only kind of non-regular finish, because there's no draws here. It was the only DQ, which was kind of a joke because everything Evil does. But to that point, I very much enjoyed the match. It was one of my matches. It was one of the things I really enjoyed on that night.
Awesome.
And so we're going to go to the next honorable mention, which is mine. And it was the greatest birthday present I could ever imagine, because I didn't have to sit through a 15-minute Evil crap fest. And I got to see one of my favorite wrestlers in the world, Zack Sabre Jr., pin Evil in 44 seconds. I love this match. And just the whole stuff with Kosei Fujita at the start. And then him just out of nowhere, just reversing the everything is evil into the O'Connor roll. I can't remember what it's called, or European clutch, and just winning it. I was so happy. It was the best birthday present I could ever ask for.
I think to quote our good friend Cody Defoe from last year, when he was talking about Evil, Evil would constantly get the everything is evil reversed. So he came up with everything is reversed. Everything is reversed.
Yep.
Little shout out to Cody. But yeah, that I do remember that. That was a good, and just the look on Zack Sabre Jr.'s face when he just peeked out from the curtain there just gave me Red Rum, Jack Nicholson vibes. And I was like, yeah. 100%. This is 100%. It.
That's what he was going for. Simple as that. He was going for that. You had to be.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
had to be 100%. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one to mention. So this one that I wanted to kind of give a shout out to is actually not actually a official G1 match, but it was happening during the tour.
It
And
was on
I
a
only
show.
wanted, yeah, it's on the G1. So, and I only wanted to really mention it because of the fact that it was House of Torture that was just being absolutely embarrassed for once instead of being the embarrassment. So at one point, the Three Lions, Kozi Fujita, Oiwa, and Nakashima, who's rocking a really cool hairdo right
Mhm.
now, the three of them managed to get Yujiro Takahashi, Sho, and Dick Togo, that's a big dick, in the middle of the ring. And they lined them up in a perfect diagonal across the ring in a trio of Boston Crabs. It was just music, music
Chef's
to
kiss.
listen
Mwah.
to Dick Togo
Mwah.
just cry.
Yeah. I will admit I didn't see the match because I outside of the last two nights I really didn't watch any of the undercards because I
That's
just
fair. It's a lot of wrestling.
with work, my life, and just life in general, and prepping for all this and literally helping design a lot of the stuff we're doing, I didn't get to watch the
Mhm.
undercard, but that seeing House Torture just get beat up is always fun.
Now you want to see this match.
I actually gonna have to go back and check it out. So for my other honorable mention, I have to go with Kenta versus Saber for night 2. Just watching Saber try to match strikes, where Saber is not a strike guy. He's a submission and break you down kind of guy, and him trying to match the strikes of Kenta, and Kenta just overwhelmingly smacking the crap out of him, I
Mhm.
think was such a great uh, back and forth. And the fact that Kenta has a very good technical ability too, because he works a lot of great submissions and is a good ground wrestler. And then having Kenta just standing over, just throwing those palm strikes at
Mhm.
Saber, and Saber just catching the wrist, hooking it into the leg, and pulling him in and tapping Kenta out like completely out of nowhere, I
Mhm.
think was a perfect finish to that match. And it makes me love both these guys so much more because of how good technically both are, and how good, and Zack Sabre just trying to get that striking, and he like his striking, it does, like I say it for a lot of smaller wrestlers when they try to do striking and big guys sell for them. I have a problem with that, where
Mhm.
even Kenta, who's not bigger than Saber, took it and like would take 3 or 4 strikes from Kenta to equal one, or from Saber to equal one of Kenta's, and I thought that was a perfect
Mhm.
way to being the guy who's not proficient in striking versus the striker.
Mhm. I have to agree, and that's something that I've grown to really appreciate from Zack Sabre Jr. Because, admittedly, when I first started watching New Japan, it was my introduction to Zack Sabre Jr. And I was like, I'm trying to understand why everyone likes this guy so much. I'd heard him, like, heard his name all over the internet, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I start seeing him. I'm like, I mean, I see Minoru Suzuki. Yeah, I can see why everyone's talking about this guy. He hits really hard and he's not wearing shin pads. But over the years, Zach has really shown how much he works in that ring. And you're very hard pressed to see him in a match with somebody and see him and the other individual not looking good. He knows how to make everything look good, look legit, and he knows how to sell everything. I absolutely have loved watching Zack Sabre Jr. grow over the last couple of years, and I'm honestly a little disappointed that he wasn't in the finals this year. I think I would have liked to see him take both the cup and the G1, but you can't have
That's the only,
everything.
other than Osprey, that's the only other person I truly in my heart wanted to see. I was picking Naito for because it was our contest that we had going. I picked Naito because I
Mhm.
thought that was the smart pick, but in my heart it was Saber or Osprey, and I was
I thought
disappointed in
Kenta was a
there.
smart pick, and he got eliminated pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Really, really did not think my life choices through on that one.
to that one, I want to give a shout out to our friend Chris, who actually won our turn. Or it was just 6 of us, but he won our pick'em tournament by 1 point. 1 point. It
1
was actually
point.
the top 3 were like super tight, and then the rest of the 3 of us, the
Mhm.
3 other of us. Well, you actually top 4 because you were like point behind Eric, I think, and then
Yeah.
me and Cody way farther down.
Hey, it's because I did not remember my strategy of the Cinderella story and the shock and awe factors. That's all stuff I had to take in consideration next year.
Kiddo's insane with his booking. That's the problem. But
Damn you,
all right, we're
kiddo.
gonna get into our top 5s. We're gonna start with Mel. We're gonna start with your top 5 first.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about my top 5. So my number 5 match here was Jeff Cobb versus Tom Lawler. I came into this tournament again, not a big fan of Jonah, not a big fan of Tom Lawler. I personally, I still think Team Filthy is just a filthy waste of time. I'm not a fan of the rest of the group, but with Tom Lawler, he really kind of became the Great O'Khan of this tournament. That Great O'Khan was last year, where he just seemed to adapt to every situation that he's in. His MMA background obviously was a huge factor and help with him. But in this match in particular, I don't think that he could really, even if he did really functionally get it, I don't think if he wrapped his arms around Cobb, if he could actually do anything once he got his arms wrapped around him. But these
It'd have to
guys,
be a
I felt.
leg, right? Not it's just a leg you'd be able to get his arms around. Because I don't think he's getting around Cobb's full body.
No, not even a little. But,
Yeah.
this match for me was actually a really good throwdown for both of these guys. I felt that it was a really good show of intensity for the 2 of them, and if I remember correctly, they kinda went all over and around the kinda ring area. For me, it was just a really great intense match and a really good show up for Tom Lawler, who, like I said, wasn't someone that I was particularly fond of coming into this tournament.
Oh,
So.
yeah, I'm a big Tom Lawler fan. This is also back from his MMA days, because I
Mhm.
remember back in his MMA days, him used to do some great entrances. Did a Shockmaster entrance at one point. Always had fun wrestling inspired entrances. And when he got into pro wrestling, I was a real big fan, and I think this has brought him to another level. And this match, especially because it shows why he was so good in the Monster Block.
Mhm. I
So
agree, I
moving on
agree.
to
He was definitely placed in the right block for this guy.
yeah, we're gonna go on to number 4 for you, Mel.
Number 4. Number 4 here was Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Hiroki Goto. And man, if we could ever describe something as a slobber knocker, it was probably this match. These 2 guys, you could tell that they were fighting for pride at this point. They were just beating the heck out of each other. There was one point where they're just going back and forth, and they get some really good shots off, and Tanahashi just swings right out there, catches Goto. Goto goes down. Unfortunately, he takes like a crotch shot right after that because Tanahashi passed out into his balls. But that actually caused, I believe it was like about an inch and a half split in
Yeah,
Hiroki Goto's lip.
yeah, it split his lip. They were all thinking like because he's had his jaw broken before from
By the
getting
same
hit.
move.
They thought same thing. So they thought Tanahashi broke his jaw again. If something inside was broken, so it was bleeding from inside. But it was it's like a nice
Mhm.
tear in the lip that you had to have stitched up. Good thing it
Yeah.
wasn't too bad because that he could actually continue. Because if that had gone
Mhm.
too far, even with
Absolutely, yeah.
stitches, you might have had to forfeit the rest. So.
Yeah, and thankfully he didn't. He soldiered on, and to be honest, after that point, I didn't even notice that his lip was even
No.
swollen. So I don't know, Super Saiyan healing ability of Hiroki Goto. If I
Yeah.
remember correctly, this was a match Goto actually picked up a win over the Ace after this hard fought battle. And this was a heavy hitting one. If you're into the strong style, want an introduction to it, this is going to be a perfect introduction for you.
Oh, definitely. And on to number 3.
Number 3, Taichi. La 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 la
Now, this
la.
one surprises me on your list.
I a match with a really good story. Not necessarily like a long range story, but what I dislike is wrestling shows that are completely absent of story. And in a tournament kind of style, it's really hard when you're like fighting this person this week and this person next week to kind of figure out how to get people interested or get that story kind of going. This match with the obvious addition of Miho Abe in Taichi's corner and Gato and Jay White's corner definitely was something that kind of I threw me back into the 90s era of like the managers and the valets being a lot more prolific at ringside. I almost said wingside there. The match itself, I mean, Jay White is a snake and arguably one of the best heels that we have in professional wrestling right now, which is why I enjoy him so much. But with the blacksmith Gato in his corner, you know, they were able to manipulate the match and the emotions of the match and the emotions of the crowd by Gato obviously assaulting Miho Abe, holding her hostage at ringside for a little bit, to the point where Kanemaru, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, who was on commentary, actually tried to get involved. For me, it was, you know, obviously you don't want to see a lady being drug around by her hair at ringside, but at the same time, it was a story. And it was a story that came out of nowhere and immediately caught my attention and just pulled me in. And I was like, oh, this is almost, I don't want to say soap opera-esque, but it was borderline. And sometimes a lady likes to have a little drama in her life, you know?
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. Don't get me wrong. Jay White, he had a really strong tournament with a lot of people he faced. It's just once he got to Taichi, at this point I was outside of what was coming at the end of the tournament for Jay White with Tamatanga or with Tonga. I was at this point going, okay, he's already won. And in my brain, he wasn't losing till Tonga, which is what happened. I kind of checked out on this match in opinion. And then when I was watching it, and then the Miho Abe and Gato stuff starts happening, and it brought me back in. I'm like, oh, okay, they're baiting us with this because like I can. For me, like as much as I love Jay White, I was starting to just kind of fade out a bit. You know what I mean? At that point, because it's like, okay, he's winning probably till Tonga, and then that brought me back into the match, the Miho Abe and Gato stuff. So,
yeah, it was a good point in the match. And like I said, it was a good point to bring everybody back in. So that's why that one was on my list.
And now moving on to two.
Yes, the number 2 match. And this one was another one that surprised me that I rated as highly as I did. Okada versus Tom Lawler. Again, Tom Lawler popping up in my my top 5.
Yeah. Going from you not liking him to
right to suddenly hyping him up. Surprised Jonah isn't all over this list.
Yeah.
But with this match in particular, Okada and Lawler, Okada, as I had mentioned, he's kind of like that Japanese Ken doll. He's very tall. He's not particularly used to being tossed around by a lot of people regularly in Japan, like maybe Fale. Jay White can throw him around once in a while, but it's only if he lets him. But with Tom Lawler, it was a different kind of big guy wrestling. Lawler almost seemed to be a very technical wrestler in this one, going back to his MMA days. And you could see Okada tied up in submissions a lot more, which again is not something he's used to being tied up in again, because there's usually not someone big enough to tie him up. And most big guys like Fale don't do submissions. So to have several like moments throughout the match where Lawler's got Okada tied up in something, and Okada is kind of going like, what in the world is going on right now? It was a really good treat to see. And as I had mentioned, Tom Lawler really has become the great O'Con of this tournament, where he's just endlessly adapting to each person that he's dealing with. And you can look back at the tournament and see his match with Yano, where he was giving him, you know, the DVDs as an exchange. You know,
so
he can clearly have as much range as Jeff Cobb with the comedy and the seriousness.
Yeah, he's an all-around performer in Tom Lawler, and like when he faced Okada again, another great birthday present for me because again this happened on my birthday, and I thought these two did a great job. Like, and I listened to Lawler do an interview on Post Wrestling before the G1, and they kept bringing up, oh, it's gonna be your match, your big match is gonna be against Okada, and the guys seemed very happy for it, and then he was going, yeah, but the match I want more than anything is Toru Yano, and he kept bringing up the Yano one, but a lot of people were looking forward to seeing what Tom Lawler could do with Okada, and I really was, and I think they did a great job. And he has a hard striking, but he has that ability that's same as Zack Sabre Jr. in that technical submission style, which along with the striking and power though, but that Sabre doesn't have, and I think it gives that good all around for him.
I have to agree. So the number one, obviously, is not surprising here. The final, Will Osprey versus Okada. I feel like you might echo us the sentiment, or that this match is probably somewhere in your
list. On my
list. So we won't go too much into the detail on this one, but this match was like I mentioned this with Shingo earlier in the first episode. Every time that Will Osprey gets in the ring with Shingo, they just have this boundless creativity. It is the same thing with Okada. Okada has this just ability to get in there and have a great match, combined with Will Ospreay's ability to do the same, plus that boundless creativity. I'm not surprised we ended up with the amazing match that we did with these two. Will Ospreay pulling off finishers of the people who managed to beat Okada in the past, and it's still not being good enough, man. What a night for that guy. Yeah. But not to take away from either participant. The match was absolutely incredible. They fought so hard, and it was almost like a kind of like a callback to their match when it was, I believe, champion versus champion, when Will Ospreay was the IWGP Junior champion.
Oh, and, that was like 4 years ago?
I want to say 4 or 5 years ago.
5. Yeah.
And Okada was the IWG Heavyweight Champion. Yeah, that was an incredible match. And I just knew when we saw that match, one day we would see it again. And one day it wouldn't just be a junior champion versus a heavyweight champion. Now they're sitting on the same block, and it's only been a short while. I suspect that we're going to see more matches with these two, and I cannot wait.
I think that'll be wonderful. We'll chat more when we get to the my list, but
of course.
But now we're gonna go into my top 5, and my number 5 is Shingo Takagi, David Finley, Night 8, July 30th. So you had his win beating Yoshihashi before this. He lost to Yujiro, then beat Yoshihashi in a really, really great match, but I don't think anybody was truly sold on David Finley's Cinderella story.
Didn't Yoshihashi and Finley happen later?
I thought that was before. I can't remember, but it was Yujiro, Yoshi, then Shingo, because Juice was later.
Right, yeah.
So, and you have him because he beats Yoshihashi, has an incredible, great match with the guy. But you're like, okay, great match with Yoshihashi, awesome job. But when you put him, everybody going into this, I think a lot of people were picking Shingo Takagi to win this. I'd say 95% of people. Just maybe the outliers are going to pick David Finley. And Finley shocking the world and having arguably one of the best matches of his career against Shingo Takagi. And Shingo Takagi, a man who has had 5-star matches, in my opinion, having, I'd say, probably a top 20 match of his career with David Finley, with how good this match was. And again, I could say top 10, but there's some absolute perfections with Shingo Takagi. That's what I'm saying. A top 20 match with Shingo Takagi is nothing to sneeze at, especially coming from a guy like David Finley, who a lot of people wrote off, especially I did, going into this tournament. And it's just an impressive spectacle to see a guy rise up and a superstar have truly defend himself against a guy on the rise.
I have to agree. This was a very, very good match, and this was one of the ones that actually got me to yell out loud at the results based on that surprise roll up. Man, huh, I died a little inside. I'm not gonna lie.
I
I
doubt
have
a
to
little
agree.
because of our contest, but
Yeah, that had a lot to do with it too. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Not a lot of people pinned Finley to beat Shingo. To be honest, I believe this was either his first or second G1. For me,
no, this is
I
his
kind of
first. This is Finley's first G1.
right because Juice had the one last year,
Yeah,
right?
it's always
Yeah,
Finley's always been part of the C block, the
right,
the
right. The
the the guys
non-existent
on the
one.
undercard. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I certainly thought that Finlay was going to be the free 2 points for everybody else who's kind of been there. So he definitely came in and surprised me, and I definitely feel that he was our Cinderella story in this G1.
very much so. My number 4, Jeff Cobb, Jonah, on my birthday, or no, not on birthday, on August 5th, on night 10. That 10 keeps screwing me up. And my goodness, was this a heck of a hoss battle. We talked about it on the last episodes. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but to watch Jonah and Cobb, these two big men, just continuously running into each other and beating the crap out of each other, it was just this utter perfection of big men wrestling, and both the ability on these guys. And then I cannot get the spot out of my mind is Jonah or Cobb running full steam into Jonah with that clothesline and knocking Jonah down, but going rolling out of the ring. It's just that something special that happened in that match, and just to see these two guys do what they did is impressive. And I recommend this match to anybody. If you want a good, hard-hitting, big man fight from this tournament, this is it.
I have to agree. I don't have a lot to add to that. That was just how you do big guy fighting right, with the combination of the speed and agility of both these guys to the unnatural ability to just make your body do unnatural things in Jeff Cobb. I mean, what kind I am 5'3". I am 140 pounds ish, and I cannot even tell you how I used to take gymnastics. I cannot do a standing back flip. And then this guy, Jeff Cobb, comes in here and just, woo, look what I can do. Like, come on, man. It's
Like he's
not
Ricochet or
fair,
something.
as Kevin Kelly likes to say. It's not fair.
It really isn't. And we're going to go to my number 3, which we've already talked about. Will Osprey versus Kazuchika Kando from the final night on August 18th. I look at this match and it's 5-star match, like without even batting an eye. These two, I think, is the best match these two have had together. Like I think they're now. I think what was he before the match? It was Okada was 6-1 against Osprey. Now he's 7-1 after the result of this. But I still think in those 8 matches overall, this is the number 1 match, and this is the match that took Osprey from being a top level guy to being a number 1 guy in the company. Even with the loss to Okada, I think this makes him. It puts him at Okada's level. It tells everybody this guy is as good as Okada, because it took everything out of Okada to beat him. And the fact that like you get the kick out of a Rainmaker, that's
I don't think I've seen anyone do that.
Because there was a really big protection on finishers in this tournament, and the fact that this is the first time all tournament Osprey's kicked out of anybody's kicked out of a Rainmaker, that just gave it that much more. And then you have Osprey breaking out a Styles Clash, phenomenal forearm, V trigger, and he went for the one-winged angel, but didn't quite get it, because I think the one person that knows how to reverse that move is Okada. I was waiting for a Destino. I'm sorry to say, because it kept talking about using the moves of people that had beat Okada in the past, and Naito is one of them. I was really expecting to see a Destino. I'm actually glad we didn't, but with even with this loss for Osprey, I think it elevates him to being in that 1A, 1B, 1C status with Jay White and Okada. I think it puts him right there with those two guys, and that top end like Naito, those guys. It puts him firmly there, and even if he will be going back to the United States title stuff for a while, it tells everybody this guy is a number one guy for this company. And Okada, again, I look forward to seeing him and Jay White at Wrestle Kingdom, as long as Jay White keeps that title.
Yeah,
I think you run that match back, and the fact that the Wrestle Kingdom was only one night again, it's back to one night only.
Oh no,
That's a good thing, because we're getting our main event on January 4th. It's Okada and Jay White. I cannot wait.
Hey, I mean, when we can eventually get to Japan to watch Wrestle Kingdom ourselves, I mean, hopefully if it stays that way, that means more wrestling for us to take in. Hopefully a Stardom show will be in town.
All right, to my number 2 match. It's from night 18. Jay White, Tama Tonga, the final match of the B block. And this, to me, took Tama Tonga up another level while showing how good Jay White truly is. And with the whole Gato and Jado thing on the outside, just each, like, Gato being able to negate Jado being able to negate Gato was actually, I thought the actual perfect thing for the story to add on to this match of these two who hate each other at this point. And I watched this. I'm sitting there going, oh my god! And I'm just by the end of this match, I was at such a high and Tama gets the win. I was just like, and I was so happy, and I was like, I think this is Tama Tonga's to me, first ever 5-star level match. Because
I have to agree.
This match was just perfection between the two. I think Jay White is one of the best workers going at the moment, and I love this match. It's easily why it's my number 2.
I concur with you on that with Jay White, sir. He is arguably one of the best heels on the planet right now. And he just, something about how he just messes with his opponents that is just, you love him and hate him at the same time. He's just that brilliant, because you know what he's doing is wrong, morally wrong. You want to dislike the things that he's doing, but at the same time, you're like, I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. I appreciate it.
He's toying with his opponents. That's the big thing. He's toying with them. And that's the part that really gets you, when he toys with them and does those weird little things and like gives that chatter and just picking at them. I think it's just perfection. And that's what made this match, because he kept picking at Tama, who he's already kicked out of their team, who's already taken his little brother away from him. I know you're thinking, but just story-wise, he's taken his little brother away from him and kept him inside of Bullet Club. So Tama hates him that much more for corrupting his little brother even more. It's just an utter perfection of a match, and seeing Tama Tonga win and get to go to the semifinals. With that, it's just a perfection scenario for that match.
Yes, I have to agree with, and also agree with the point with Gato and Jackdo there at ringside. I also have to mention that I really appreciate how Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Jackdo have come out of the Bullet Club. You know, there was obviously some scathing in that, but I mean, look at those three when they come out now. I mean, look at Bullet Club. I mean, they come out, they're like, oh, yeah, too sweet. But you have Tama Tonga and Tangaloa coming out, and Jackdo, all wearing matching outfits, all posing in the same way that Lucha Libre does before their matches, which is something I really, really like, because then you have no excuse for not having promo pics. But yeah, it's been such a treat to see how Tama has taken this change and really run with it. And hopefully, when his brother comes back from his knee injury, we can see them join the tag league again and hopefully try to get those IWGP heavyweight tag team titles back to New Japan wrestlers.
I never thought I'd actually want those two to win the tag titles again, but I do. It's insane.
Wrestling.
All right, now we'll go to my number one. I clicked it, but we went back. It is Will Osprey versus Naito from the semifinals. I thought this is the match where I in my heart wanted Osprey to win. Will Osprey, baby. I wanted him to win so badly, but I had it in my head. I'm like, oh, it's going to be Naito. Because the story they were telling with Naito the entire tournament was this guy fighting his way. He finally is going to get his final shot at the big title. And Osprey taking the win in this, I was like a kid in a candy store thinking, oh my God, we're getting Osprey winning this G1. I was just because I'm thinking after that match, I was so sure Osprey was winning.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way these two went back and forth, the Destino reversals, the Destino kick out, which again protected that move the entire tournament. Nobody's been kicking out of it. And they give Osprey that. And Osprey just doing everything, hidden blade after hidden blade. Like it just took everything out of Osprey to get this win. And he beats him. And you could just see it in Naito after the match, and it was that it's that look of everything crumbling down for Naito, while on the other side it's Osprey with that I'm about to be it, and then the speech after saying he is going to light the way for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is going to be what leads them out of darkness and starts filling stadiums and starts filling places again. I was so hopeful. I still think he can be that person for this company. Don't get me wrong. I still think he is. But this match, 5.5 stars in my opinion, just with how good the story back and forth was. Oh, these two were it's the one match. If anybody asks me what one match you have to see, it's this one for me because of how good the chemistry was between these two who have never wrestled each other in a singles match before. That is the craziest part of this. A lot of these other matches, these guys have faced each other multiple times and they know each other. These guys have never gone one-on-one, and it happened on a semifinal with great stakes. It was the perfect place to have their first match.
And knowing that, I mean, how much does that speak to the experience and education and just knowledge of both Will Ospreay and Tetsuya Naito, that they had never wrestled with each other and they had such a polished and great match. Like that's
for sure.
That's what wrestling is.
Yeah, you can't ask for it. To me, there's very few matches better than this that I've seen in my entire life, outside of stuff maybe that I've seen in person. But that's a different feeling there.
That's a different thing to talk about. So coming off of our top 5 now, I think we're going to segue into our top favorite performers, top 3 favorite performers. Oh, goodness, Andre, I agonized over trying to pick the few people for this list. I can't tell you how many times I scratched out names and re-put them in, but we're going to start. My number 3 top performer is Jonah. Mr. Nipples, as I called him, but his nipples have not been coming out lately.
So mean.
I can't call him that anymore. They're not coming
He's
out.
got a single that fits now.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just I'm jealous. You know?
Well, it was this thing that he had from WWE. Just his nipples just kept falling out. I agree.
Yeah, but it was always the left one, man. Always the left one. But for me, again, I mentioned this a few times on the first one, mentioned it a little bit here. Jonah was not one of my favorite performers. I did not know him really as Bronson Reed. I never really was introduced to him. Him coming on to Strong and the Impact kind of run he had, that was my introduction to this guy. And I'm sitting there going, why does everyone like this guy? And then he came to Japan and did the G1, and I went, oh, that's why you guys like him. Why didn't you just say that? This guy has such range. Coming in as a top dog, trying to be dominant, trying to be intimidating, and still managing to pull off a great comedy match with Yano, because that's what Yano is. He's the comedic relief of the show.
Yeah. Well, 5 out of 6 matches. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. But with Jonah, again, like, to see that absolute range when he comes in and battles with somebody like Fale, like Jeff Cobb, like Tom Lawler, and then you have Yano. You know, you see that dominance, but what you didn't lose in that comedy match was the dominance. No matter what Jonah did, he still looked exactly how he wanted to look, which was like the top dog. And between him and Big Teats there, they had a pretty good run. I mean, we can't not call that guy Big Teats.
Bad Teats, come on.
Bad Teats? I don't think that sounds good.
Bad Teats, baby.
I mean, would you rather have bad teats or big teats? I mean, oh my goodness. But yeah, for myself, again, Jonah wasn't a big thing for me. This G1 was definitely something that turned it around for me. Am I excited to see what he does coming up in New Japan? Yeah. Yeah, I am. Just based on his G1 run, I think that he has the potential to start winning championships fairly quickly. I don't think he'll start with the IWGP heavyweight one. I think he should maybe target Carl Anderson, go after that never open weight title.
Tag team titles with Big Teats.
Hey, there you go. That would be a good one too, because you got the TMDK. What with the TMDK 2 tag teams? You got to have somebody going after those singles belts.
I just think it'd be funny.
It would be funny.
All right, we're going to go to my number 3, and that's David Finley. The Cinderella story of this tournament. It's got to be. He came in. I think so many people put him in a huge role, not because he's way better than Yujiro, but I think a lot of people considered him in a Yujiro level, or for the rest of the year, a Yoshihashi level, where a lot of people, I think, were there to expect him to take pinfalls to Shingo, to Will, to Juice, to Yoshihashi. I think he was there. A lot of people expected that. And he didn't. He beat the top 3 guys in his block. Yeah. So I thought it was such a strong tournament from him. And he raised his stock. To me, he was a guy. Oh, okay. He could put him in the ring. I guess you could go in there with Osprey and have a U.S. title match. Now he's a guy who I want him in a U.S. title match. I want him to see him face off with Osprey to elevate him even more, to give Osprey a great contender for that U.S. title. I want him in there to go and take that title from Carl Anderson as fast as possible, is get the title off of him. Well, as long as Doc Gallows is around, that title needs to come off Carl Anderson so they leave again, please. But I think this tournament has done nothing but raise Finley's stock, and I think he is now a very high mid-card guy in New Japan proper, and I guess in Strong too. But I think his main thing is, I think Finley stays in New Japan proper, and he is now a high-level guy for this company.
I have to agree. That's a good choice for that, the Cinderella story. Somebody get him a shoe.
Yeah, definitely.
So my number 2 pick for top performers, this was the one specifically that I agonized over the most and changed the most. I came down to Jeff Cobb and Tom Lawler. I ended up picking Tom Lawler just because I knew Jeff Cobb was good. I always knew he was a good performer. We've seen him live here performing at the Nate School against the Omen Gabriel. And what an incredible match that was. But Tom Lawler, as I had mentioned many times, wasn't a fan of him coming over here. I was not a fan of the strut. I was not a fan of how he looks like he hasn't bathed. Just not a fan of the wrestling. It's just Mr. Fringe. It was too much. It felt like something too much had vomited on him, and he really he very much so won me over in this tournament in the same way that Jonah did, showing that massive range in his interactions with the wrestlers, in his interaction with Kevin Kelly on commentary. He really did take the opportunity to do as much as possible with his experience over in Japan. And it really did win a lot of respect from me in the G1. But to see how far he actually went and how consistently he performed, he just shot right up for his performances, and he stayed at that consistent level. That is very hard for a lot of people to do, but apparently not for Tom Lawler.
No, I think Tom Lawler, I think a lot of people, I had trouble picking him to win matches in this tournament because I just didn't know how they were going to book him. But I always knew for a long time that he's been a solid wrestler. So the fact that him and Jonah, guys you weren't high on coming in this tournament, are in your top 3 performers of the tournament, is a huge one. And my number 2 is your number 3, Jonah. I think I was a fan of him. I don't think I was like super high on him, but I didn't not care for him. I enjoyed his NXT run. It's just when he showed up, and that first loss to Yano, I think took him back a step or two, because it hurt him in a sense going forward. But then he was able to rebuild himself and make himself one of these scary monsters and one of the most impressive people in this tournament. That torpedo, I don't care how big you are. I don't care. It's pro wrestling. I don't care. That man is 300 and some pounds falling on top of you. No matter what, I showed it to a friend at work who's not. He's a passing wrestling fan. He watches a match here or there, and I showed him Jonah doing that torpedo. He went, "Oh my God, why? Why would you take that? Why would anybody do that to them?" And I was like, it's just, I said that, and that's the reaction he wants from you. Is that he is so good with that powerbomb and that torpedo. He has shown why I think he should be part of New Japan for a long time to come, and New Japan proper, not just strong in the US. I think he should be a mainstay in New Japan itself, and I think he's shit on the guy, but a perfect replacement for Bad Luck Fale as the big man in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I have to agree with that. I mean, Fale has had quite the run, but this G1 wasn't particularly impressive for him.
No, and Jonah, I think, is the right guy to be that replacement. It was like that big guy you need for the big man matches. That is Jonah. And
he's a monster, Andre. He's a monster.
He is. So now we're going to go to our number 1 wrestler of the tournament, and that is Will Osprey. For me, it's Will Osprey. I don't have a newer Will Osprey shirt, and I should be shamed for that, but I still got my Eagles and Osprey shirt, and I think Osprey is probably one of the best wrestlers going in this world, and he proved it. With all his tournament matches, in a way, with how well he did with Finley and elevating Finley in that sense. The fact that he was Yujiro's best match of the tournament, in my opinion, even though the Shingo match wasn't that bad, he was Yujiro's best match of the tournament. And I think he showed up every single night having the best matches possible. Even in there with Juice Robinson, who was doing some screwy stuff, he still had a really, really strong match with Juice. And it just shows it shows you why Will Osprey showed up and should be everybody's number 1 spot, in my opinion.
And yeah, I have to say with Will Osprey and the confusion and everything surrounding the U.S. Championship, I wonder if that was Will Osprey's idea, or maybe a combination of the 3 of them. But it's as I mentioned before. I mean, Will Osprey and his boundless creativity. He does have that almost um, Bret Hart effect where he just can't have a bad match with anybody. He does elevate his opponent as much as he elevates himself. In fact, he probably elevates himself just that little bit more, just so that you remember what he did.
If this was Will Osprey of say 3 years ago or earlier, I don't think this isn't a man who could elevate other people. Yes, he can go in the ring with strong wrestlers, even not so great wrestlers, and still have a good match. But he's at a point in his career. You think he's what 29 or 30 years old at this point, and he's has the ability to go in there and make himself look amazing while taking his opponent and making them look like a superstar with him. That's the that's the mark of just a truly great professional wrestler.
I agree.
So now we're going to go on to our favorite guest commentator show, and this was a great run throughout the tournament. Of Kevin Kelly had Chris Charlton on the weekends and on a couple big and on the final few shows, but a lot of the weekday cards, Chris Charlton couldn't be there, so we had to have some guest commentators. So Kevin Kelly wasn't doing it alone, and I think the people that he got, some of the ones are really good, some weren't meh. And for my personal pick for my favorite person on commentary, it was Lance Archer. I thought Lance Archer was so great to listen to, especially the first time when he's like asking questions, because it's like he's acting like hasn't seen anything to do with and asking these questions. And I thought it was so perfect. But then he was putting guys over in such a way and talking about how brutal some of them can be, and getting slightly technical, but not very technical like others did. I think he did really well. And just the banter with Kevin Kelly about how he is too scary for other people in AEW to want to wrestle, and him going, yeah, that's my biggest problem, reacting that way. I thought was the back and forth between those two was phenomenal.
I have to agree. Lance Archer, I've heard him before on commentary before this G1, and I absolutely loved how you couldn't tell if they didn't tell you that was Lance Archer on commentary. The way he speaks, how eloquently and educated he speaks, you wouldn't know that he's the same person screaming "Everybody dies" in your face and beating the crap out of the young lions.
Yeah.
But yeah, Archer was a really good choice. Again, the questioning and banter back and forth with Kevin was actually some of the more kind of positive and almost lighthearted that you heard Kevin, other than when he was with Chris.
Yeah. And for yours?
Yeah, my surprise pick was Tom Lawler. Again, as you had mentioned with Lance Archer, how he came out there and it was, very well spoken and very technical and just knowledgeable, and going back and forth with Kevin, being very humble and putting over the people that he had already fought or that he's going to fight. I really appreciated it. And honestly, I've said it quite a bit. I really liked hearing him on commentary almost more than I enjoyed his matches. And I enjoyed his matches quite a bit. I mean, 2 of them were in my top 5. So with Lawler, I mean, could he replace Alex Kozlov? I'm just throwing that out
If
there.
he wasn't full-time wrestling on that product, I would say yes, but he's wrestling on the product, and that's where I just want Kevin and Riccaboni to be that team.
Hashtag Lawler for Kozlov. Let's start this war. Oh no.
So we're with the love we had for those two on guest commentary, we've got to talk about our least favorite guest commentator. We're not saying we hate these people or they suck at their job. We're not saying that. No. It's just the ones when we listened to them, we didn't care for. So we're going to go to yours first, Mel.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably get some heat for this because ordinarily this is not something that I would pick. Chase Owens actually was not one of my favorite wrestlers until I heard him on commentary with Kevin Kelly. And then I gained a huge respect for him. Quickly became one of my favorite guys. And then I started noticing how amazing he was in ring. But I don't know what was going on, if maybe they were just having a bad Bullet Club night or what, but the few times that I did hear Chase on commentary, it just seems like something was off. It might have just been an off day, but the banter, the word I used the most to describe it was sassy. They were very sassy with each other, particularly Kevin, and that's not something I typically hear out of Kevin. Kevin is usually very, lighthearted, and even when he's like, giving Bullet Club shit, it's like you almost want to scold him for saying, "You son of a bitch, Kevin, don't use such language. How dare you?" But
Yeah.
this one was just I think it was just a matter of timing. But Chase unfortunately was not my favorite on commentary in comparison to people like Jonah or Tom Lawler.
Well, for me, for Chase, the one that got me for Chase that got me was on the final night where he was sitting there on night 18 with Kelly and Charlton, which was just really weird that they did this. They chose to do the 3-man, and I'm glad they got away from it for the other 2 nights. Well, again, all the other guys were wrestling, but I'm happy they didn't have it on that final night, because it wasn't that Chase was bad. I thought he was fine when he was contributing. It's just he contributed very little. That's why I can't hate on him for that night, but I just don't think he was missing so much on a night when he should have been talking more, especially with a few Bullet Club guys aren't working that night. He should have been more. But for me personally, and this is no slight against him, it's David Finley. I just don't think his style is meant for commentary. I think the way he speaks, the way he talks about things, he's not overly descriptive. When he cuts a promo, after his wins, they were phenomenal promos. But when he's on commentary, I found him very, very Kozlov-ish. I'm not a fan of Kozlov either, and he was very monotone, very like, it's my choice to put tape on me if I want to. It's everything. The way he was talking, the way he was describing things, it just made me kind of want to go to sleep with listening to you talk. Even though I'm watching exciting pro wrestling matches, it was making me want to go to sleep, because I just wasn't a fan of the way he spoke and his cadence and things like that. That's where I was struggling with David Finley.
It was almost like he left his emotion backstage or something. He was just very almost bored to be at commentary. I do recall there was a certain points where Kevin would ask him something and he'd be like, "I'd just kick his ass." It's like,
yeah, it was very
like, elaborate on that a little bit more.
He could have said, what was it? He's like, he could have said, I would have put him in this, and I talked about a move or something he would have done instead. Instead, he would just say, yeah, I would have kicked his ass. Or just, it was very like, I don't really care to be here. I want to be in the locker room relaxing. Not that I think it was what he was thinking. It just, that's how it came off to us, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
So from here, we're going to talk about, and this is a spot of wrestling I don't like. I don't like saying how I hate people or how I don't like people, because I think these guys are all, when anybody gets into professional wrestling, I respect them for what they do. These are just the guys I personally didn't enjoy watching, and it's our worst performers and who should be removed from the tournament for next year, in our opinion.
Yes, and to start this off, I think we were pretty unanimous. Bad Luck Fale. As much as I love the guy, as much as he's a tremendous mentor to the New Zealand dojo guys, they're still taking in people for the 2023, 2024 training, if anyone's interested in becoming a trainer and moving halfway across the world.
And head trainer at the Fale Dojo is a man by the name of Tony Cozina, who is, I've watched him wrestle multiple times. I've got to talk to him backstage at shows that I've gotten to work on that he's been at. He is phenomenal. His knowledge is amazing, and his in-ring ability is bar none. He trained David Richards, one of the best wrestlers you could ever imagine. So if you're into wrestling, go to the Fale Dojo. Tony Cozina and Bad Luck Fale will teach you so well, in my opinion.
That being said, though, we don't really want to see Fale continue in this tournament.
Yeah.
For myself, I love the guy. Again, a tremendous teacher, tremendous mentor. Um, has endless things to teach the next generation of wrestlers. And like myself, I follow him on Instagram. His motivational videos are usually very well timed.
Oh,
And
they're wonderful.
yeah, and his food videos, his cooking, he looks like a really good cook. So just so you know, ladies.
Well,
Um,
and if you watch any stuff, he cooks for those young lions and stuff. When
yeah.
you see him in there cooking for those guys like, and some of the meals he makes them are amazing. It's just,
Mhm.
he's over 40 years old now, and yes, there's guys like Ishii and Tanahashi who can still go at high levels, who are
Mhm.
40 and over 40. Where Bad Luck Fale, you can see it in his, and not to shame a weight shame, because I'm a big man who struggles with his weight and has struggled with my weight for a lot of years.
Mhm.
His weight is a big factor in what he's doing,
Mhm.
and I think it's really limited his mobility this year, and the other part of it is I don't think his you can see him physically, just overall he's slower, he's sloppier.
Mhm.
If you bring him in for undercard tag matches, things like that, you can keep him in tags, things like that. I don't want to see him get a tag title match again,
No,
but
no.
that seems like they're pushing for that. I just don't think has the ability, especially if they go back to, say, the 2 block system next year, where it's could potentially be 9 to 11 matches for you in the tournament. If they go back to that
Yeah.
one, have 20 or 24 people, it just I don't. He'll be fine if you want to bring him in to do undercard matches. I just don't
Mhm.
think he belongs there anymore. And no hate on the guy. I think he's spent years being a fan of him. His Rogue General stuff, his honorary Tongan stuff, big fan. But I just don't think he has the ability to be part of the Grand One tournament anymore.
I have to agree. Everything you said is very on point there. Um, the second person we both agreed and concurred on that probably shouldn't be in the G1, at least until he's had a timeout. My goodness. Put House of Torture and Evil in a little timeout box somewhere and give them back their stuff after a year when they've calmed the heck down. Um, yeah, obviously it was a big thing last G1. I'm fairly certain it's been just an ongoing occurrence. The Bullet Club shenanigans. We can't even really call them Bullet Club shenanigans.
No, it's
It's
House
the
of
House of
Torture.
Torture shenanigans. Again, we've
Yeah.
mentioned it before. Are they really affiliated with Bullet Club? They don't show Bullet Club
Yeah,
logo.
sort of, but
They
yeah.
don't even have the music. When they come out as a team, they come out to whoever the captain of that team is, and they
Yeah.
don't really particularly blend, or at least blend well, with the rest of Bullet Club. But getting back to Evil specifically, you can't have evil without Big Dick. And I'm so sick of seeing Big Dick chokes. You know, I'm just so sick of it. Um, where evil goes, Big Dick goes, and where Big Dick goes, the Garrett goes. It's become
Yeah.
predictable. It's to the point, as you had mentioned, to the point where you don't even want to watch the matches that he's involved in. They they need to figure out a way to functionally do the shenanigans without being so obnoxious that people don't want to watch the shows anymore.
Yeah, the amount of times over this past year or 2 years, even during Evil's title run, that I would skip Evil match. I skipped Evil title matches. I skipped heavyweight title matches when he had the title, because I just was so sick of the Evil style of match.
Mhm.
I look at it and I just go, even when he was in LIJ, I was starting to get tired, because he would that baseball chair thing on the outside. It happened a lot. He was starting to get to that point when he was in LIJ, and then when he left, it just got bad. And I skipped so many Evil matches now, unless he's facing a guy like Sabre, or he's in the G1 tournament, and I want to watch it just so I can grade it in my head, so I know what I'm taught. I can honestly, truly tell you how I feel about what I don't like. I look at it and I go, why is he still in this? Again, it's the grade. It's called the Grade 1 tournament. It's supposed to be the most prestigious tournament in professional wrestling. Why is a guy who constantly cheats and constantly has his cronies doing dumb shit on the outside still in this tournament? And it bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely brings out some frustration in me. And as you can tell from your tone and my tone when we talk about it, we certainly get angry and aggressive when we're talking about Evil, let alone when we're watching his stinking matches. So that being said, let's move on from these guys. Leave the worst performers in the
I got
behind
one more.
us.
I got one more though.
Oh, one more.
It's the other member of House of Torch that was in this tournament. It's Yujiro Takahashi. I'm sorry, I've been saying it for probably 3 years now. Yujiro needs to be removed from this tournament. He's slow. He had a couple good matches in this tournament, but that was because of if you don't have a good match with Will Osprey, or you don't have a good match with Shingo Takagi, there is something wrong with you. And he had decent matches with those two, but everything else, his Finley match, his Yoshihashi match, the Phantasm one was just a joke to me. His one with Juice was just dumb. I look at him and like, you want to roll around as a pimp on the undercard and choke people and have your crony hit people with wrenches. That's the other part that has really made me down on Yujiro so much more, is show with the goddamn wrench.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just made me. I'm at that point when I'm at the evil point with Yujiro, going, I don't want to watch it. The other half is Yujiro's like 40 now, I think. He's around the same age as Naito, and his in ring has just gotten so slow and so plodding. It's more of his in ring ability. Same with the level of Fale, but also with the crappy evil stuff that he's doing with Show, makes me want him out of this tournament. I don't want to see him there again, because there's so many guys that could be in this tournament next year that could do so well.
Yeah, with Yujiro, I mean, even Peter can't save this at this point. She's the best part.
The best worker in that
She's the best worker in that faction, yeah. And it's interesting to note that it does seem that Yujiro only has the ability to really have good matches with good ringleaders. People like Will Osprey, people like Shingo Takagi, but then he can't have good matches with people like David Finley, who I would say is probably not so much of a ring general. So it's very interesting
but David Finley is good. David Finley is good, and he should be able to. Yujiro should be able to have a good match with another really good worker, but he doesn't, because of his weaknesses now and where he's failing in ring wise, in my opinion. Again, everything we're saying is our opinions. Nothing is fact. Nothing is us screaming into. We're just screaming into a void in reality. With this.
Except for Peter should be the leader of House of Torture. I think that's pretty unanimous.
Yes, should be House of Peter.
House of Pimps. So moving on to our final topic here, who do we want to see next year added instead of maybe Fale, Yujiro, or Evil? Andre, do you want to go first?
I got a list, and so
let's pick the best. They're the best couple.
Trust me, I picked the best of that I put. I whittled this list down to I think it's 8 from I think a list of 25 people. I can go through this quickly. Impact Wrestling, because again with the junior tournament, they had a couple Impact guys in. I honestly think Josh Alexander and Chris Bay. Yes, Chris Bay is considered a junior, but he put him in a tournament like this, I think he really succeeds. And then another couple over from Noah, who I'd really like to see, are Kaito Kiyomiya and Keno. I know you're not the biggest Keno fan due to some Naito and stuff, but I think those two especially for Keno right now. I think to come over next year, he's 37 right now. He's 38 next year. I think for him to come over and have, yes, it's the N1 Victory Tournament, and I know it's a prestigious tournament, but to come over for either one, especially for Kaito Kiyomiya, who's so young, he's 26 or 27, I think.
Is he the young one who looks like Ibushi?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I like him.
He could have such a start. He's already been GHC champion, but he could have such a truly star-making performance if he was brought over and was given a good tournament run. He doesn't have to win it. He would have a good tournament run to face really good guys. I think he could truly have a good run. Same with Keno. I think it was just to be that for him is the cherry on top of the wrestling cake if he had that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to give out a name or two, and then I got some more.
Yeah. So the one guy, I hope I don't butcher his name, also from Noah that I had picked was Katsuhiko Nakajima, who I believe is in the same faction, Congo.
With Keno,
yeah. I also picked from GLEAT, Shima.
Ooh.
Or Sima.
Yeah. I was surprised he didn't get named for this year after you had El Lindemann, his partner in Strong Hearts, being in the juniors. There's a lot of surprises we didn't get from this year, but I really surprised we didn't get a Shima appearance. Like, it was really surprising.
Quote Alex Kozlov, I as well. I was very surprised that Shima was not involved in this, especially when we had already gotten a little taste of him in the Cup. I thought that this would have been a nice second, or I guess technically third, because Lindemann would have been the second step. This would have been a nice step for them. I also just in general just love watching Shima. He's one of my favorites. He's definitely won me over very quickly. Dashingly handsome young man or older man. The last one I picked, which I know is...
I've got a couple more. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, sorry. So the last one I picked, which I know is an impossibility just because of politics. Politics ruining everything, which would be Andrade's. Andrade's obviously had been over in New Japan before. I believe he was La Sombra still.
It was back when he was La Sombra, but it's the whole AAA mess that I think would limit that, really, because he's associated with AAA right now. That's the problem.
Freaking Mexicans, figure your shite out. Let us have the wrestling we want.
I would love to see him. I think I wasn't sold on him when he was in WWE, but just the attitude that he has with AEW now, and I've seen some of the stuff he's done with AAA. Oh man, I think his ability, I think he would do so well in that tournament.
Yes, he would. He really would.
Yeah,
which is why he's on my list. So we got to get these politics figured out, guys.
Yeah, I got a couple more from outside before. There's 3 names from New Japan I would really love to see promoted into this tournament. But the other couple outsiders are Bryan Danielson. I think everybody wants that. Even you're not even a big AEW fan, but you have to want to see Bryan Danielson in this in the G1 at least 1 year. I
definitely want to see him doing something other than what it is that he's doing.
Yeah, you could because that how good he is to put him in the G1 against imagine him and Okada, him and Naito, him and Sabre, him and Osprey, him and Ishii. There's so many amazing matches that come from Danielson.
Him and Shima.
The other one I want to see is he's a man from All Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is Jake Lee. I know you're not super familiar with him, but I have watched a bunch of matches from him over the last couple years, and he's been very unlucky with injuries. But when he's not injured, he is so good, and I think he could have another guy who could have a star-making performance if you put him into the G1 and gave him a good run. Again, doesn't need to win it, but have him have a nice solid run, rack up a few wins over some top guys. I think he'd be a great addition. And then the last couple guys I have are from the junior division in New Japan. And I think we all would like to see, and I think one of them was very surprised. I think he didn't get promoted this year. Haruma Takahashi. She's wearing the shirt. Kushida,
Ticking
who just
time
made his
bomb.
return. Kushida, who just made his return,
Yes.
and Shota Umino, who has yet to come back. I think those three in
Oh,
future, and I'm not saying next year, but in future G1s could be
mhm.
great.
Absolutely, and like, to be honest, Shota Umino, I was a huge fan of him when I'd actually first started watching New Japan. He was still a young lion. Kurwado had just left, Oka had just left, Kinemaru had just left. So we
Mhm.
had Ren Narita, Yu Uemura, Yoda Suji, and
Yeah,
Shooter. And Shooter was the
Shooter.
first to leave, and man, I have missed
John
him.
Moxley's boy, baby.
But how much does he look like Hiroshi Tanahashi at age 20? Like,
So much that you're kind of concerned. Like, this is gonna sound bad that Tanahashi had an affair with his mom, and you're kind of scared that because he's Red Shoes kid, isn't he?
yeah, he does look a
I'm
lot
not,
like Red Shoes, though.
he does, but he looks a lot like Tanahashi, and it's
Like
scary.
spitting image, the pants and
I
everything,
joke.
and even some of his moves. Some of his moves are very reminiscent of the Ace. So I would like to see
I
Shooter.
I think
I want
he's
him back. Give him back to Japan.
I think he's modeled himself after Tanahashi, and I think he's a
Mm,
perfect person to model yourself after. If you want
mhm.
to put yourself in a position to be one of the best in the company, yes, Tanahashi is a great person to model yourself after.
Mm.
It might be a little too much modeling yourself there because it looks super similar,
It
but I
literally
think
looks like he stole his pants.
it's a great starting ground though for him.
Mm.
100%, 100%.
Now, if there's anything that we could tell Shota out of this, if you are taking the Hiroshi Tanahashi route, please don't get your injuries evaluated route and get those
Oh
injuries evaluated, please.
yeah, very much so.
Well, that being said,
Oh,
Andrea, I think we have kind of wrapped up everything. We do have some local shows coming up here that we did want to talk about that Andre and myself will be attending this week.
yep.
So, this Thursday, August 25th, at Midway Music Hall, Top Talent Wrestling is actually presenting, it's a slobber knocker. So, we're going to have people like Ava Lawless, Mitch Clark, Heavy Metal. We even have debuting Nate Nixon against the Omen Gabriel there. That's going to be one of my personal favorites there. But, who that there? Huh? Oh, and of course, we have the goddess here, Kat Von Hees. I love this lady going against Riley Rose, the new girl coming off of a win against Taryn from Accounting last month. We're going to see if she can step up to the queen that is Kat Von Hees.
Very much
Then,
so.
of
And
course,
for
oh,
people they're bringing in, you really
mhm.
gotta be impressed with this one. You got Gringo
Gringo
Loco taking on
Loco.
the Healer, and I think this is going to be a stellar match
Mhm.
for that show. And then
And Heavy
finally,
Metal
for
coming
me,
off of his match from Jordan Oliver last month. Again, he's
oh,
going to eye.
great match. And then finally, for me,
Mhm.
the biggest match of the night is Davey Richards versus Mitch Clark. Like, I've been a Davey Richards fan for a decade, well over a decade, like since like late 2000s ROH. I've been a fan of David Richards. I can't wait for this. I missed him when he was here years ago. He was here like 6-7 years ago with RCW. I missed him, and I will not miss him this time.
Well, since I'm on this side of the camera and I've got Mitch Clark, let's not take away from what happened last
Oh
month
no,
when Mitch Clark obliterated not one, not two, but three opponents. Maybe before getting obliterated himself, but that's not the point. That was
yeah,
not a match. So that was not sanctioned. So technically, one show, Mitch Clark has 3 wins. I mean, I would say he's kind of a head and tails above the rest right now.
very much, and he's doing a lot of great things in a couple other companies too. So he's a very
Absolutely.
impressive. And then Friday on the 26th, I will be attending Love Pro Wrestling at the rec room on the south side of Edmonton to make sure it's not the West Edmonton Mall one, it is the south side rec room. And for LPW and Outcome the Wrestlers, this show actually I'm really looking forward to it. You have a number one contendership 4-way between you got Sean Moore, Son of Irish, Jack Pride, and Travis Williams. I think this could be a phenomenal match where I really hope Son of Irish has yet to get a win there, which I really want to see. I love that kid. You have the state of emergency who just had a run in RCW about a month ago, coming into LPW to face off against the Clandestine Society and Michael Richard Blaze and Stephen Crow. The tag team match is going to be phenomenal. They are bringing in for the LPW Challenge Championship to face Taryn from County. You have Veda Scott. I love her. I've watched her for years. Her commentary is amazing. So I very much look forward to seeing her. And the main event, it's going to be Gigi Ray taking on Zoe Sager. Gigi Ray's rise in this business, her rise in this business has been phenomenal. So I'm excited to see her come back to Edmonton again for this show.
Gigi Ray is a girl who knows how to work hard and market herself.
And Zoe Sager, I think, has been phenomenal. Has been like a leader for the women's I said revolution because WWE branded it, but the bringing women's.
You don't want to cease and desist, Andre.
No, but bringing really bringing women's wrestling back to prominence. Her and Kath Von Hees, I think, have really led the women to becoming the strong, as strong as they are here in Alberta, at least. And then a lot of these girls going to BC, going to Saskatchewan, going to Manitoba. I think we have a great run with women's wrestling coming, and we will be covering women's wrestling soon enough with a Stardom review coming.
I'm hoping this week to start recording our first Stardom kind of thing, but I also have to catch up on a couple episodes of my Stardom.
I gotta catch up on every single night that's happened so far.
We did have the treat of seeing both Suri and Julia present flowers to Will Osprey and Kazuchika Okada there right before their G1 final match. And those two girls are some of the heaviest hitters in Stardom. Not to mention, they're pretty cute, good-looking girls.
And I'm hoping myself that we get to record an edition of Chop Talk, breaking down, getting to talk about top talent and Love Pro Wrestling from this upcoming weekend. I'm hoping we're going to get to do that in about a week or so's time after the shows are done. I'm hoping so, anyways.
Absolutely. Well, with that all being said, I think we are about to wrap up our episode 2 of Puroresu Review.